giveaways because we are doing a giveaway today. If you don't want to win it for yourself, you can win it for someone else. Okay, we have been discussing self-regulation. And self-regulation, of course, we said is the ability for children to be able to take charge of their own learning process and instill in themselves self-discipline. And yes, we said self-regulation is a very important skill that needs to be developed in 21st century kids. And we talked about 3 big questions the last time. Can you recall? We talked about 1, knowing if the activity is long-term. 2, knowing if the children can plan their own learning process and activity. And 3, knowing if the children have the ability to be able to review their work based on feedback and of course correct the work and ensure that they take every necessary correction and steps to making sure their work is top-notch. Okay, so now back to self-regulation. Today we are going to be looking at the rubric and we are going to be discussing how to code our lesson activities to ensure that we know the degree of self-regulation going on in our classroom. You need to also know that you do not have to ensure or involve all the stages of self-regulation at the same time. You can apply it individually. But of course we know that from the different levels, for instance, the first one where we have is the activity long-term, that will be strong, is the activity giving the children the opportunity to plan their own work, plan their lesson activities. Do they know their lesson objectives and success criteria? That would be stronger. And then strongest will be when they're able to review their work and based on feedback and of course make the necessary corrections. So that is what we are going to be discussing today. How to code our lesson activities, how to examine it and know the degree of self-regulation going on in our classroom. Stay tuned. The decision tree is visually designed to contain 3 big questions that answer the questions on the level of self-regulation skills that are being applied in your classroom. And of course, the 3 big questions are: 1, are the students able to partake in the activity long term? I mean, not just partaking in it long term, they also have their success criteria and they also have their lesson goals. The other question, number 2, is: do the students have the opportunity to actually plan their own work? And 3, do the students have the opportunity to be able to review their work based on feedback? Not all the questions need to be answered in one activity at the same time. You can decide to infuse the different questions and it depends on your outcome, it depends on what you want the children to achieve, and of course it depends on the degree or the level of the children at a particular point in time. So then it depends on you. You need to be emotionally intelligent, you need to be intelligent and be able to observe your children, and you need to be able to gauge the level and degree at which they are to be able to decide what question you want them to ask. So putting that in mind, you then need to ensure that you check that some of the activities may be long-term, some of them may be structured or may require you to monitor their work. Some of them may require you to, review based on feedback, and then of course may require you to monitor their work. So whichever one you decide to choose is dependent on what you want them to achieve at a particular point in time. Now the decision tree highlights 3 big questions and leads to a code 1 to 4. Remember that the code does not determine the quality of the activity. Rather, it just tells you the degree of self-regulation skills or the self-regulation activity happening in your classroom. So now, looking at the decision tree, the first question is the lesson activity long-term and the students have their learning goals and success criteria in advance? The second one is the student able to plan their own work and processes? And then the third question is, do the students get to revise their own work based on feedback? Are they able to revise it? Are they able to, submit drafts and, ask for feedbacks and then rework their answers based on the feedback gotten? So yes, we have the self-regulation skill coded from 1 to 4. Now let's begin coding. Straight to coding. Now, we are going to ask the first question. Is the lesson activity long-term? Do students have their learning goals and success criteria in advance? Now, if the answer is no after examining the activity, the lesson activity is coded 1. An example of a lesson activity coded 1 is a picture project where you have students given an assignment over a 2-hour period. They are expected to gather pictures. Maybe they are making a picture frame or a picture story. They gather pictures, put the pictures together, do maybe a video to explain their pictures, use maybe PowerPoint to put together those pictures, and they submit it. They work in a group, they have fun, and they are taking charge. Yet the activity is coded 1. Why? The activity is not long term. An example of a long term activity will be an activity that is happening maybe over a 2, 3, 4-day period, lesson period, or over a 6-week, That is an example of a project that is long term. There they have the opportunity to really plan and take charge of their lesson activity. But believe me, 2 hours is not enough to ensure that you infuse self-regulation skills. Now, we go further to ask the next question. For a lesson activity that is going to be coded 2, we ask, is the lesson activity long term and students have their learning goals and success criteria in advance? If yes, what do? We ask the next question. The next question is, do students plan their own work and processes? Now, if the answer is yes to the first question, but no to the second question, we call the lesson activity 2. Good. So that is an example of an activity that is coded 2. An activity that the students have the opportunity to work long term. They have the opportunity to get their learning goals and success criteria. They know it. And of course, they do not have the opportunity to plan their own work and process. So then we call that lesson activity 2. Now, if we ask the question, do students plan their own work and learning process? And the answer is yes. What do you think the lesson activity will be coded? 3. Good. So the lesson activity will be coded 3 if the students have the opportunity to work long term, if they have their learning goals and success criteria, and if they plan their own work and learning process. For an activity that satisfies all the 3 big questions. 1, the students have the opportunity to work long term. They have the opportunity to know their learning goals and success criteria. They also plan their own work and process, and they have the opportunity to review their work based on feedback. We call that lesson activity 4. And then we say that yes, they are on the pinnacle level of self-regulation. So yes, at that point, the children have reached the highest possible way of self-regulating, of possible skill in self-regulation. So that is what self-regulation is all about. Now let's take an example. A 6-week project. Students are given the opportunity to plan a particular project, decide what tools they would use to design the project, decide where they would carry out the project, decide what materials will be used, how they will break the groups into different tasks and responsibilities, and all that. They are given the opportunity to actually take charge of their own work, and they are given a long period of time. They determine their work, their process, and all that. Yes, that activity will be coded 3. Why? Because the activity does not require for them to review their work based on feedback. But in a 3-week activity, for instance, where the children have the opportunity to, after going through the first question, the second question, and in the third part, they get to actually submit a draft of their work by, say, the second week. And then based on feedback gotten from either colleagues or teachers, they go back to review their work. Then we say that lesson activity is coded what? 4. Exactly. That lesson activity is coded 4. So let's take a look at the rubric again, the self-regulation rubric. That would be a guide to you when designing your lesson activities. I hope you get the drift. So yes, for the self-regulation rubric, take a look at it. In code 1, the learning activity is not long-term and students do not have their lesson or learning goals and success criteria in advance. In code 2, the learning activity is long-term, students have their learning goals and success criteria in advance, but students do not plan their own work and process. In code 3, the learning activity is long-term and students have their learning goals and success criteria in advance and are able to plan their own work process but do not review work based on feedback. And in code 4, the learning activity is long-term, students have their learning goals and success criteria in advance and plan their own work and learning progress. They also review their work based on feedback. Oh, it has been an amazing time. I hope you had fun. I had fun coding with you. So yes, now back to my giveaway. Now, what are the 3 big questions in self-regulation? I hope you can answer the questions, and please do drop in the questions in the comment section below. The winners will be getting, I'll have 2 winners actually, 2 beautiful books. One is The Right Teacher and the other is The ABC of Professionalism. They are both written by Dr. Abimbola Ogundere. I hope you're a part of the Right Teacher Academy, are you? So yes, so the winners will get these gifts, 1 each. 2 winners will get 1 of these books each. I look forward to you answering the questions in the comment section below. If you don't want to win for yourself, win for somebody, a teacher who deserves it. All right, see you in next week's episode of the Ed Innovator series. And thank you so much for joining me today. Bye.